And now the EFD and Mr. Farange.
Well, Mr. Barroso, not just you, but the entire unelected government of Europe, and a chance perhaps for our citizens to reflect on where the real power lies in this union. I've listened to you for nearly 10 years. Full marks for consistency. You know, you're a man that likes fixed ideology. You probably picked it up when you were a communist or Maoist or whatever you were. And for the last 10 years you've pursued Euro-federalism combined with an increasing green obsession. And yeah, it's been good. For bureaucrats, for big businessmen, for landowners, it's not been a bad decade. But it's been a disaster for poor people, unemployed people and those on low wages. The euro, which you believed would give us monetary stability, has done the very opposite. It was a misconstruction from the start, and it's pretty clear that youth unemployment at nearly 50% across the Mediterranean is probably nearly double what it would have been as a direct result of the misconstruction that is the euro. They are in the wrong currency, but I know that you will never ever admit to that, and the euro, I think, will die a very slow and painful death. But you are all in denial about that. But that I find really more interesting. You keep telling us that climate change is an absolute top priority, and you have been greeted with almost hysteria in this place over the last 10 years. Well, those of us that have been sceptical about this have been mocked, derided, called deniers. We have argued from the start that the science was not settled, and we have argued very strongly that the measures we are taking to combat what may or may not be a problem are damaging our citizens, and we have been proved to be right. Tens of millions forced into fuel poverty, manufacturing industry being driven away because, of course, our competitors in China and in America are going for cheap fossil alternatives, and, of course, wind turbines blighting the landscapes and seascapes of Europe. And still today you go on about green growth. Well, the consensus is breaking behind you. You know, Commissioner Tajani the other day said that actually we face a systematic industrial massacre. It is time to stop this stupidity and to help you. There is the NASA photograph last August of the ice cap, the northern ice caps, and there is the NASA photograph this year of the ice caps. It is increased by 60% in 1 year. Leading American scientists are now saying we are going into a period of between 15 and 30 years of global cooling. We may have made one of the biggest, stupidest collective mistakes in history by getting so worried about global warming. You can reverse this in the next 7 or 8 months. You can bring down people's taxes. If you don't, they will vote on it in the European elections of next year.
Mr Farage shows that populists are sometimes obscurantists. 99% of the science, Mr Farage, believes that this climate change exists as a result of human activity. 99% of scientists. Of course there are always people that are paid to say the opposite. But to pretend, as you pretend, that against all science, well established science, that the problem of climate change is just an invention of the Greens or of the left, it's completely nonsense. Of course we have to find a way. Of course we have to find a sensible way to fight climate change. We have to look at the same time for competitiveness in Europe. We have to make this part of our agenda for growth, and I believe that the green economy brings many possibilities. Mr Callanan, you said, making a joke about possible competitors for the Commission election, that you are not interested in that job, that you are very happy with yours. Let me tell you very frankly that I think even if you were interested, you could not have a chance to be elected for President of the Commission. And you know why? I am not saying that happily, because I think increasingly your party and your group is looking like the UKIP and the Eurosceptic anti-European group. And I start to have some doubts that you are going to be elected yourself in Britain if it's not UKIP that is going to be the first force in the British elections. Because when it comes to be against Europe, The people prefer, between the original and the copy, they prefer the original. That's probably why they are going to vote more for Mr Farage than for Mr Callanan. And this I don't say with any kind of satisfaction. Because if those forces that are pro-European, or even those that are not really pro-European but constructive, have the same speech, the same political attitude of the anti-Europeans, the Eurosceptics, the populists, in that case they will win the next election. So my appeal to you is to make the case for Europe.
Now for the EFD, Mr Farage, please, you have the floor.
Well, next year's European elections will not be contested on the old division lines of left and right, and several group leaders have agreed with that today. Frankly, that's all irrelevant. It will be contested between those of us that believe in national democracy within the nation state and those that believe that the 28 countries that are part of the EU are better governed by these institutions. That, in a sense, is what this comes down to. But, Mr Barroso, those of us that believe in national democracy do not want to take us back to the Western Front or 1914. Those of us that believe in national democracy will say to you it is a healthy assertion of identity, but it also shows a deeper understanding of why the problems of Europe were caused in the past. It is democratic nation states in Europe that are stable, that will not go to war with each other, and I'd remind people, without the vote in the House of Commons 2 weeks ago, we would now be at war in Syria. What better proof can there be that nation state democracy can be a force for good?